Okay, guys. So I was in the middle of trying to complete the conclusion of Sarah Boone's testimony to put up, which I'll try to still complete tonight. But this has happened so quickly. This case started a week ago today, week ago Friday. And we are already here, and the jury has reached a verdict. And I tell you, I can't imagine that they would go for anything less than second degree. But I get very nervous because Florida, to use Sarah words, is notorious, or has been, let's say in the past, for getting some cases which I thought were just like, oh my gosh, that were just very disturbing. And those two, and there's probably others, but Casey Anthony and the Trayvon Martin case, very tough. So is Florida going to get it right this time? I'll tell you. So as I've been trying to record the trial, with, like I said, so fast, it went by so fast, and I'm just going to be playing it later on because I got to get Sarah Boone out of my system because this is one of the most horrific and heartbreaking ways to go. And when I saw the prosecution's bombshell of those videos that Sarah recorded herself of her cruelty and seemingly power over George, and I know they have all those text messages that Mr. J read in their closing arguments. And that I think is what did it. Well, no, I mean, it did it for me when I saw the suitcase video and then heard the interrogation. But I'll have to say I was nervous because, and you'll see this, I'm going to be playing it. Hopefully y'all will join me with it when I do it. Go back over the court proceedings and everything. I was kind of worried when they showed all of those photographs of Sarah with the black eye and the thing from the knife in the leg and this and that. Who knows, though? I mean, like I said, we know that both of them, I think number one, were alcoholics. And how many times has alcohol destroyed lives of people? And that was very sad for me to set aside how utterly vile and evil I find Sarah. That alcoholism is a serious disease, and it's very sad. But that doesn't mean that it gives you an excuse to do what she did to him. So seeing those photographs, I started to wonder, wow, did George even do any of that to her? Did she do it to her own self? Nothing would surprise me. I mean, when we look over these videos, what we're going to be looking over, oh my goodness. I watched it late last night and I couldn't stop. I was absolutely riveted by the audacity that Sarah had to just think that she could get away with all that, and the arrogance she had about turning down the offer of manslaughter. I can't even believe that she did that. But I was really hoping that meant that maybe she'll never see the light of day. It was heartbreaking to see how cruel she was to George and his poor family. So it's really gotten to me. But I just pray that they're going to get justice. But I think I was afraid that when the defense all of those photographs and everything. And of course, her story, though, but then when she told the story with no feeling and just such no feeling for George. I saw no remorse, no grief, no, none of that. It was horrible. Okay, so let's see what happens.
Garrett Weimer here, and we appreciate you joining us this at 8:35 on this Friday night. We have been informed as of just a couple of minutes ago that a verdict has been reached. So we are still waiting on the jury to come in. They have not come into the courtroom yet. Obviously, we will make sure you don't miss a thing. But we did want to go ahead and break in and let you know that the latest word from inside the courtroom is that the jury has reached a verdict, and that would have been just a little less than an hour and a half after
that could be good news.
Jury retired to the deliberation room. So that 7:05 was when they went back. It was around 8:33 when we got the notification that a verdict had been reached. And so that's where things stand right now. You are looking at a live look inside that courtroom. Normally when they get the word that a verdict has been reached, they inform the bailiff passes on the word, and then there's normally a little bit of a gap in time there, so that everyone who has maybe stepped away or been outside of the courtroom can get back in the courtroom for the reading of the verdict. That was quick. We talked about it with Lauren Cadillac just a little bit ago, and she said she thought it would be quick and thought there would be a verdict coming in tonight. From our reporter in the courtroom, she tells us that folks are inside the courtroom now. The family of George Torres is now back in the courtroom as well. And Sarah Boone, we're told, is also back at the defendant's table, sitting there and waiting to see what this verdict might be. So we are going to step away for just a minute here. I'm going to put the camera inside the courtroom up full here, and we are just going to get our everything kind of arranged here and ready for the verdict, which we expect any minute now to come down here from courtroom 12A in the Orange County courtroom. So stay with us.
Oh my gosh. So how is Sarah going to react to whatever? I don't know. Do you think that Mr. Owens has said, Sarah, this isn't looking very good, or is she gonna? Do you think she will not be surprised, or do you think that she will be surprised, thinking, just always feeling like she's the smartest person? Everybody is wrong except her. And again, it's like, I just feel so sad for his family, his parents, his sisters, not sisters, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, his siblings, but I meant to say his daughters. There was actually, Court TV actually interviewed George's ex-wife, who'd been married to him, I think, 14 years, and 2 of his daughters, and I'm going to share that with you. But I know that his ex-wife, I think the only thing she said about him was, well, he was a ladies' man, which, okay, that doesn't mean you should be, you should be unalived for it. And so apparently she had not had any problems with DV. I kind of thought that, though. I think if you look at my earlier videos, I kept thinking, I really think George is the victim. And when I saw those recordings Sarah did of him, and yes, he was intoxicated most of the time, which was very sad. But you know what? I probably would have drank too if I was around Sarah. But she would just come in, and it was just like, usually he was sleeping or something, and she would just be shoving the her phone in his face and just saying these horrible things, her voice sounding totally different than what she sounded on the witness stand, using her little baby voice and saying, oh, can I cuss in here? Is it okay to cuss? Okay, yeah, you can say it, biatch. I mean, F you.
Well, welcome back into our coverage here on Fox Local,
Can I just say that this fellow looks like he's like 15?
And on YouTube. We are waiting on the verdict to be read this evening. So the jury retired to deliberate at 7:05 p.m. We got the word around 8:33 that a verdict had been reached. Just to kind of recap for you, we spoke with attorney Lauren Cadillac a little bit ago, and this is what she expected to happen. She is an attorney. She's been watching this case closely, and she told us that she did not think it would be any problem at all for the jury to return with a verdict tonight, and they have done so, and they have done so quite quickly. Now, just to kind of recap for you the options that the jury has in front of them. So Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder. That is the first option for the jury to consider. She could be convicted of second-degree murder. If they decide that the state did not reach that burden, if they did not prove the elements of second-degree murder, and we'll go into those in just a minute here, they could also convict her of a lesser charge. Those two lesser charges, those options are manslaughter and culpable negligence being a misdemeanor. They could also acquit her and find her not guilty. So this is the statute. This is second-degree murder. This is, and just to, let me pull up the jury instructions that I've got a copy of here as well. There are 3 elements in this, and the state has to prove all of them. The state took time out of its closing argument to to kind of walk the jurors through and say these are the elements, and this is how we proved these elements throughout the trial. The elements being the unlawful killing of a human being when perpetrated by an act imminently dangerous to another and evincing a depraved mind regardless of human life. So when it comes to those elements in the jury instructions, 1, George Torres is dead. That's the first element that had to be proven, and that was stipulated. There was no argument over that. It was stipulated as fact. So both opposing parties, agreed to that and didn't have to put on evidence that George Torres was dead. The second being that death was caused by the criminal act of Sarah Boone. And in the prosecution's closing argument, they boiled that down to 2 points. And what they said was they were able to prove that by the fact that Sarah Boone zipped up the suitcase and did not unzip it. They said that alone proves that the death was caused by the criminal act of Sarah Boone. And then the third element being there was an unlawful killing of George Torres by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. To that is when the prosecution showed that suitcase video and said that shows the disregard for human life in that very act. Our Fox 35 Stephanie Buffamonte inside the courtroom tells us that the family of George Torres is in, the defendant is in, Sarah Boone, and now prosecutors have arrived back inside courtroom 12A. So we're expecting to hear that verdict any minute now, and that will be the end of the suitcase murder trial. This has been, it began October 14th with jury selection, 4 days of jury selection, opening arguments a week ago today, and then we've had 6 days of testimony. At 7:05, the jury retired to deliberate, and here we are at 8:45, just about, waiting on that verdict to be read. But beyond just the 10 days of this trial, this has been more than 4 years of a road to get to this point. And you can imagine that is something that the family of George Torres, sitting on that front row inside in the gallery of the courtroom, is thinking about this evening. February 23rd, 2020. That is the date that is stamped on that cell phone video that we have seen probably too many times over those 4 years and over these last 10 days of trial.
Haunting.
And a number of delays in this trial, a number of attorneys that Sarah Boone went through, and at one point even representing herself. Represented now by James Owens and a legal team from Milton, Florida, up in the Panhandle, and being prosecuted by the 9th District State Attorney's Office. And we will see here shortly whether she is convicted of second-degree murder, whether she is convicted of manslaughter, whether she is convicted of culpable negligence, or whether she is let off the hook and found not guilty. Now, I've got the Criminal Punishment Code score sheet here.
Okay, this is what I'd love to hear.
That lays out the potential punishments for the second-degree murder charge. And that is, it lays out as the lowest permissible prison sentence, 246 months. That's the sentence computation. You do the math, and I did it on a calculator, so I know it's right. 20 and a half months. That's 20 and a half years, I should say. 246 months. That's 20 and a half years in prison. The maximum sentence is life in prison. So a lot at stake here in this trial, and that was something else that we talked about with Lauren, is the high stakes of this and what the jury has to consider. But the 5 men and 1 woman on that jury, it did not take them long, and they have reached their decision. And Lauren said we were getting her opinion on the timing, and she thought that if they came back tonight, it was probably a positive sign for the prosecution. And so we will have to wait and see. We are live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Fox Local, and however you're watching us. We appreciate you joining us at this hour, 8:46 on this Friday night, October 25th, and we are waiting on that jury verdict to be read. My understanding is the only element missing from the courtroom right now is Judge Kranick, and so as soon as he gets back inside the courtroom, we expect our feed to begin, our live pool feed. You are seeing that live picture from inside the courtroom. No audio, nothing going on right now. So we are monitoring this, and we'll jump in as soon as things get rolling here. I do want to go ahead and talk through the other potential charges that are potentially being considered here, because like we just laid out, it's not just second-degree murder. There are lesser charges, 2 lesser charges that the jury could convict Sarah Boone of instead. So let me pull that up for you here, and then I'll give me 1 second, and I will make it so that we can see that feed inside the courtroom as well. All right, here we go. Lesser charge of manslaughter. This is the statute, the Florida statute regarding manslaughter, and that charge from Florida law: the killing of a human being by the act, procurement, or culpable negligence of another without lawful justification. So that is certainly a lower bar, a lower standard.
Which, may I say, that is what the prosecution very generously offered Sarah. And I truly believe, whatever you think of Mr. Owens, I think he came, and I'm glad that she was represented. She deserves a fair trial. But I think all along he was trying to get a plea deal for her. And for being seemingly the smartest woman, she immediately and arrogantly said, reject.
Than the second-degree murder charge, and you are going to see that the second lesser charge is even lower of a standard. It is that culpable negligence. And so let me pull that one up for you now, and we'll go through that. It says, very simply, whoever, through culpable negligence, inflicts actual personal injury on another. And again, you'll see there in the statute that it is a misdemeanor of the first degree. So certainly the lowest of those potential charges. We are, well, it looks like Judge Kranick just came in the courtroom, so I'm going to go ahead and we will take this live Judge picture. Kranick. Still no audio from our feed yet, but we expect things to begin here in just a moment as we await the verdict being read in the suitcase murder trial.
Second, we are on the record in case number 2020 CF 2603, State of Florida versus Sarah Boone. State, let me get your appearance for the record.
Dave Castro on behalf of the state.
William J. for the state. Defense.
James Owens for Ms. Boone. Mr. Henderson's not going to be here.
Okay, all right. Ms. Boone is seated at counsel's table, wearing the same clothing from this morning. Yes, Mr. Beck.
Judge, they've got her in chains, and they've got her in the ankle
Keep them on.
handcuffs, so she can't go anywhere. I'm just asking, we would like to rise during the jury coming in. I'm asking if there's any way we can take off the handcuffs and the waist chain so that the jury wouldn't see it in case there's something wrong with the verdict form, or there's an issue, which sometimes happens. But that's my position.
Leave them on. No, I'm kidding.
I've been advised by the sheriff that during the reading of the verdict, due to Miss Boone's status as an inmate,
Oh,
the
yeah.
leg irons and the cuffs are to be attached.
That makes
She's going to
sense.
stay seated.
That's fine.
Mr. Beck's going to stay seated.
I would ask for us all to remain seated, and could you remind everybody in the gallery that there should be no emotional reactions?
I was just about to address that, sir. Thank you very much. All right, members of the jury.
Yeah, just
my
keep her-
understanding, or members of the gallery, good evening. My understanding is that the jury in this matter has reached a verdict. I don't know what it's going to be until it's read. If you are unable to contain yourself emotionally, and you're going to react in any way, be it in joy or in sadness, I'm going to ask you politely to excuse yourself at this time. There cannot be any emotional outbursts when the verdict is read. Does everybody understand that?
Tell them,
See
Judge
everybody
Payne.
nodding their heads. Okay.
Okay, I guess, it would be something to think about too, what if, well, maybe that's not, I'm just thinking what if the person wasn't happy with the verdict? Maybe they should keep them. What if she gets the worst, 2nd degree, and she stands up and goes, it's not fair. It was not intentional. It wasn't intentional. We were just playing puzzles and painting and tending to my blind and deaf dogs and okay, here we go. I'm a little punchy right now, or slap happy, whichever you want to call it.
All right. State, are we ready to bring in our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, are we ready to bring in our jury?
Yes, Judge.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in our jury. Everyone will remain seated.
Ooh, man. Oh, man. I can't even imagine how his family must feel. Sarah doesn't know what to do. She can't take notes. There's no Pop-Tarts. Can you imagine, for those guys, the prosecutors, they've been waiting nearly 5 years. They must, everyone, and the defense must be exhausted. Surely she's got to know. Or do you think she's sitting there thinking, of course?
State, do you recognize our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, do you recognize our jury? All right, members of the jury, you may be seated. Thank you.
Mr. Owen, sit
Members of our
down.
jury, good evening. I understand that you've come to a verdict in this case.
Yes.
If you could please hand
Oh, did
the
you hear
verdict
that?
form to
Oh
the
my
deputy,
goodness.
please.
Do you think she's sitting there really thinking that she's going to get
Yes.
off? Surely she knows.
Madam Clerk, if you could please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the 9th Judicial Circuit and in Orange County, Florida, case number 2020 CF2603, the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone. The verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the 2nd degree as charged in the information.
Yes.
So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this
Look at her
25th
shoulders.
day
It
of
looks like
October
she's
2024. The form has been signed
chest
by
breathing.
four persons.
Madam Clerk, please poll our jury.
Juror seat number 1, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror seat number 2, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes, it is. Juror seat number
Wow.
3, is this your true and correct verdict?
Whoa.
Juror seat number 4, is this your true and
Uh-huh.
correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror seat number 5, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror seat number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Members of our jury, again, I want to thank you for your time, your sacrifice, and your attention in this matter.
Thank
I know
you,
that we
jury.
spent almost 2 weeks together, and it was not taken
You did
lightly.
your job.
And I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank
the time
you.
and the effort and the sacrifice
Justice
that you put
for
into
George.
this case. I want to advise you now of your final instruction. Members, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and your consideration in this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes
see her rapid
should
blinking?
remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are at liberty to speak to anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with you, from the media, from the attorneys, or elsewhere. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. With that, members of the jury, again, I thank you for your service. I'm going to ask you return to the deliberation room. I'll be back there shortly with your jury certificates, and thank you.
Wow. Pipe down, Mr. Owens.
Ms. Boone, the jury has spoken in this matter and has found you guilty of murder in the second degree. The court adjudicates you guilty of murder in the second degree. As this is your first felony conviction, you are entitled to a pre-sentencing investigation by the Department of Corrections. Mr. Owens, are you seeking that in this case?
Yes.
Yeah.
State, I will order the Department of Corrections to prepare the pre-sentencing investigation. State, for the purposes of sentencing, do you anticipate eliciting any testimony from, be it the victim's family?
2 or 3 victim impact statements, sir.
Okay.
Oh,
Mr. Owens, do you
good.
plan on presenting any evidence during the course of the sentencing hearing, sir?
Probably some testimony from Dr. Harper.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. What does that even mean?
How long do you think, State, that you would need?
You mean timing-wise, or are we thinking?
A quantum of time, sir. Yeah, well, normally it takes about 30 days or so. I'm confirming with Anita as to availability. I just want to know from your side of the ledger, how much time? Okay, 15 minutes. How much time do you think you're going to need to produce anything from your side of the ledger, sir? Mr. Owens.
I'd say 30 minutes. 30 to 45.
So if we set this for an hour, that would be sufficient.
Pardon me. Okay. State, please.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Okay, all right, give me a moment.
I've said this before throughout the trial. Once this is all done and they get the sentencing done, she's not going to have all these people around her. She's not going to be able to
Ms. Barrios is checking. Just give us a moment.
come to the courtroom and be the center of attention. Is she going to suffer a deep
Just to jump in
depression?
here a second, Sarah Boone convicted of second-degree murder. No visible reaction from her as that verdict was read.
I wonder if she still thinks she's getting off. I mean, seriously. I think she thinks she's invincible. Dear God, she ain't going to start writing letters again, is she?
We can set this matter for 1:30 in the afternoon for sentencing on December 2. State, is that acceptable?
No, we need it sooner.
It's a Monday.
I I had a status hearing, but I'll make it work.
I can move it to later if necessary.
I'm co-counsel on it.
December 2nd. Well, she ain't
Okay,
going anywhere.
defense.
Give me 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
That's Monday, December 2 at 1:30.
Yes, sir.
I can be here.
Oh, there's his family. Oh.
Ma'am, you've been adjudicated guilty. I now remand you into the custody of the Orange County Jail pending
That's his
sentencing
mother,
on December
I
2
think.
at 1:30. State, anything else we need to address?
Not from the state.
Defense. All right, thank you very much. We're off the record.
Wow.
You saw at the end there a shot of the family of George Torres
God
in that
bless the
front
family.
row where they have sat for hours today. At one point, the mother of George Torres had to leave, overcome with emotion while watching the cell phone video that showed her son, George, in his final moments
Bless
inside that
bless
suitcase.
them. Bless her.
As we now know, he suffocated to death. And Sarah Boone, who was recording that video on her cell phone, now convicted of second-degree murder for killing him. She is still sitting at the table. She is shackled. She has her handcuffs on. She is speaking with her attorney, James Owens, her 9th attorney in the past 4 years. At one point representing herself.
Well done, Mr.
To the
Cacciatore.
prosecution, Dave Cacciatore
Well done, Mr.
walking
J.
out. Will J still at that table.
I gotta say, well done, Mr. Owens.
James Owens continuing to confer with his client.
You fought for your
Found
client.
guilty of second-degree murder, getting ready to be remanded into custody.
Don't look back.
And she will be
I hope his
sentenced
family isn't sitting there where she's looking
on
back.
Monday, December 2nd. She faces between 20 and a half years in prison to life in prison.
I hope she gets life. That's the
You
only.
can see the bailiff walking up to her. Defense attorney Kevin Beck there packing
I just
up.
got to tell you, you know how many times that one video when she was delaying going with this bailiff who has put up with her all this time? I wonder if she's going to try to linger this time too.
Things.
Did you hear?
No more sound coming from our pool feed inside the courtroom, with the court being off the record, so hard to
Sarah's,
tell what the atmosphere there is. As Sarah Boone now stands up, leaving her notes behind, and is led out of the courtroom for the final time after 10 days of this trial, and after numerous appearances in court over these 4 years. Lots of hearings, at times where she was even representing herself. She would often sit in that jury box during those hearings, the same jury box where those 6 men and women sat, 5 men, 1 woman, sat for the past 2 weeks, and tonight voted to convict her of the murder of George Torres. You see her there being fingerprinted by the sheriff's deputy inside the courtroom. She's being remanded into custody. This is part of the process there. She'll go back to the jail, and then after sentencing, will be in prison for at least the next 20 years.
Look at her.
After all this, still hard to get a read on what she might be thinking, what she might be feeling. One last glance at her attorney as she is escorted out of the courtroom.
I wonder if she's gonna be lonely. But you know what? One thing I'll say about Sarah, and I don't mean it like I'm, what am I trying to say? I'm flattering her.
And
But-
with that, the suitcase murder trial has come to an end. It was
Oh, sorry.
a long road to get here. It has been a long trial, and it ends with a conviction. We will have some more coverage here in just a couple of minutes to wrap things up, but we are going to take a quick break. and then we will be back to wrap up our coverage that you've been watching on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, Facebook this evening, and also YouTube. So keep it right here. We've got a little more coverage to come as we kind of wrap up what has been our live streaming coverage for the past week here online. So keep it right here. More coverage to come in just a minute.
Yeah. It was interesting. Did you hear when Judge Cranick polled the jury to make sure that that was their verdict? It was a resounding yes. And one of the gentlemen, I noticed, man, before it was hardly out of Judge Cranick's mouth, he was going, yes. They must have been, oh man, I just, they had to look at all those horrible pictures and, oh, what I was going to say about Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth. This has just been, and I don't even know anybody. It's just like, oh my gosh. But Sarah is a survivor. That's one thing I'm going to say. But she's going to be a very lonely survivor. I say that because I think in her mind, she still believes she's right. It doesn't matter what the verdict was. She is such I know they didn't necessarily diagnose her as a narcissist, but I think, again, I'm sorry if this is your first time here. I'm not an attorney, not a lawyer, paralegal, psychiatrist, psychologist, but just somebody with a big opinion, especially when somebody is this evil and vile to their victim. I think she's a psychopath, narcissist, because I think in her mind she still thinks that she has that power. With all her letters, she'll keep herself busy, whatever makes her happy, whatever helps her, I guess. So be it. But I think she still believes, oh no, I'm going to fight this. I think that she'll live her end days thinking that, because she doesn't have, and again, of course, George, the number one victim, his family, his mother, I can't even imagine. My son is grown. My son or daughter. If something like that had happened, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how I would make it. But I hope y'all will hang with me, because I was wanting to cover it, but there just isn't enough time. It happened so fast. I can't believe it just happened in a week's time. But I will be continuing to roast Sarah for a long time and dig into this. All of these, there were so many interesting things that happened in the trial, but not intentional. I'm just thinking about, know that. Oh. At the end of, I don't know if it was in the first video I posted of of her testimony, or in the second, and I might have even talked about that, I'm not sure. But I just remember when Mr. Owens was asking her, did she love George? And she did something to the effect of, not direct quote, but I never knew a love like that. It was something to the effect of that it was much deeper than the love that she had with Brian. Poor Brian. Oh my gosh. Can we just not forget, okay, number one, victim George.
I want to jump in here, Garrett Weimer.
Hang on, I'll finish.
You're watching James Owens speaking with reporters. Let's listen in.
In shock. She said she would call me tomorrow morning, so we'll talk some more after she's had some time to think about it. I've had some time to think about it, but, we're obviously really disappointed. We did the best that we could, in the time that we had to prepare. Sarah really liked the team, and we all got along.
That is pretty
with the
much
3 lawyers and the other 2 girls that have helped the other lawyer. 4 lawyers working on the case.
She didn't say females.
And Sarah was, as you know, really happy with us. And, we had some disagreements about how the case should proceed. And Sarah, is opinionated, and
Yeah,
some of the things we
understatement.
considered, some not. But ultimately, I think she was happy with the defense. It just didn't go our way. As you know, these trials, a murder charge is a difficult case to beat, and there was some strong evidence
Yeah.
that the state used, obviously. And,
Used?
we
No,
just,
it was
for
there.
whatever reason, the jury didn't consider some of the things that we felt like
Well,
should have potentially been defenses, the justifiable use of force under the battered spouse syndrome. But for
no,
whatever
save it.
reason, we respect the jury's decision. They've been here for 2 weeks. Took us 4 days to pick the jury. And so I'm sure they did the very best that they could under the circumstances.
Was it
Okay.
her decision to not take the plea deal, or you think she regrets it now?
I don't think she would have taken anything. I think she wanted, some clients, they want their day in court, and I don't believe she would have taken anything.
I believe you did
I
try,
felt
Mr.
like
Owens.
the state should
Good
have
on
probably
you.
negotiated a little bit more, but they
Nah.
were firm on where they were, and Sarah was firm on where she was. I just think, she was convinced in her mind that
Yeah, in her mind.
that she felt like, I didn't, obviously, she felt like she didn't intend to kill George.
It wasn't
And,
intentional.
this
Not
was
intentional.
just
Know that.
a circumstance because they were both intoxicated. Things happened that, it was just really unintentional act. So I think she felt bad about any kind of a murder conviction or pleading to any kind of a murder.
Yeah, she didn't want to look bad, that's for sure.
Criminally responsible for George's death.
Well,
and
she
I think
was.
That's where her mindset was. And, I think she would have gone to trial even without lawyers. She was ready to go to trial.
I agree with
pro
you, Mr.
se.
Owens.
I think she was happy we came in. We worked as hard as we could. We had about 45 days to get ready, and we did all that we could. So I think she feels good about our efforts. We put everything out on the table, just like any other contest. You do the very best you can, and then you have to accept, the decision by the jury. We respect the jury and appreciate their time and attention on the case.
Will you be representing her on her appeal?
No, I'll be representing her at her sentencing, but not the appeal.
He's probably saying no, but he'll know.
She would qualify since she's indigent for court-appointed appellate counsel. And those guys, that's all they do is appellate work, and those are probably the best lawyers to handle something like that. But we're, as I said, really disappointed. Sarah is kind of in shock, but we respect the jury's decision. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
I got really annoyed with Mr. Owens, but
That was James Owens. You heard his reaction just moments ago there, speaking with reporters outside the courthouse. We also expect to hear from the prosecutors shortly. We will bring that to you when that begins. They are going to be meeting in the courtyard of the courtroom shortly. But you heard James Owens there say they put everything on the table and they accept the outcome of this. He will not be representing her in her appeal, but he will be representing her come December 2nd when she is sentenced. So that is where things stand right now. It is 9:12, more than 12 hours since court began this morning. And what's that, Johnny? Is our feed up? The state attorney is coming soon. Is that going to be also on 303 still? Okay. So we apologize here. You're just seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff as things happen. So our crew is heading over to the courtyard right now where the state attorney will be speaking. You heard from Sarah Boone's attorney just a moment ago, and we are going to hear from the state attorney as soon as we get that shot up. It looks like they are standing by and ready. So I'm going to go ahead and take that source and let's listen in.
oh, there's the detective.
It's my big head fitting in all these lenses. That's what it is. All right. Everybody ready?
Yes.
All right. So today, as many of you know, Sarah Boone was convicted of second-degree murder of her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr. These events stem from an incident from February 23rd of 2020, where she zipped her boyfriend up in a suitcase in what she claimed to be a game of hide and seek. And two videos were introduced from her where he was begging for his life, and a horrific turn of events. And she didn't try to let him out. She didn't do anything to help him. She just went upstairs and went to sleep. And so this is a very horrific homicide. Nobody really should have to endure this type of struggle and fight for their lives and have to die alone.
No.
Begging for their last breath inside of a suitcase like this. And the jury did amazing work. I'm thankful for our chief of homicide, Will J, and our assistant state attorney, Dave Cacciatore. They did amazing work. Some of you caught me in the courtyard. I was like, I get briefings about it every single day about what they've been doing. But we're excited that they were able to bring this home with a victory because today justice was served with the conviction of Sarah Boone for this very horrific homicide that occurred. And so if you have any questions, I'm going to turn it over to them.
So Strong, sorry. Defense's argument, clearly the jury did not buy it. The argument was self-defense and better specimen.
Correct. And so we're going to turn over to Will and Dave to ask all specific questions as to all the defenses, and it's because they did all the great work, so they deserve all the
Could you
credit.
step up a little bit? Thank you. Yeah, so like the defense doesn't speak about that. I know the jury obviously did not buy that. They came down with that second-degree murder charge.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, how does that make you feel? Have you got a chance to speak to the family?
Yes, we're very happy to gain some closure for the Torres family and some justice for George.
Strong closing arguments from the both of you today. What do you think, like she said, this case means for the family and getting justice for George Torres?
I think after 4.5 years and the numerous delays, I think they were finally just happy to see this case go to trial and be able to put this one in the books.
What do you think the appropriate sentence should be?
We'll reserve comment to the sentencing hearing.
Do you expect the verdict to come back that quickly? I think it was an hour and 20-something minutes, very fast.
You should never have expectations.
When you think about the case law with respect to Martinez, I know there was a strongly worded letter you all signaled you would be sending. Is that right for judicial review higher up?
Can't really talk about future legal arguments.
How was it in the courtroom between you and James Owens? There was obviously moments of tension and then also moments of levity. Was this different than a typical battle that you go into?
I wouldn't say it was different than a different relationship than with most defense attorneys.
What would you say to the jurors who were here for about 2 weeks on this case? It was a long jury selection and then, of course, a lot of evidence to look at and all of that. What would you want to say to them?
Just thank them for their service.
Will, did you know that it was George Torres' mother who broke down in court today, and that was the reason for the bit of an outburst?
I was made aware afterwards. It happens in these cases.
Do you have a chance to talk to her and say something to her?
I have not yet.
That's her son.
I spoke to her along with the rest of the Torres family after the verdict. And just listen to them.
A strong rebuttal yesterday from you guys. What do you think that evidence
That was
showed
huge,
the
guys.
jurors and meant for
Huge.
this case?
I'm not going to really talk about the evidence.
Final question for me is, were you stunned that she did not take that plea deal?
It's not for us to say.
They're being very close-lipped.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You guys been here for a long time. Thank you for coming.
And just note the sweat on those poor gentlemen's brows. I can attest to it because, yep, it's hot and they have to wear
There we
suits.
heard from the state attorney, Andrew Bain. We also heard from his assistants, Dave Cacciatore and Will Jay. They didn't have a whole lot to say there in response to a number of those questions.
they're
but
exhausted.
You heard state attorney Andrew Bain call this a horrific homicide.
It was.
And kind of walk through the process to get here and get through this to get to this point. We are going to step aside again for just another minute here, and then we have more coverage coming up on our live stream, so keep it right here on YouTube and on Fox Local. We have more coverage to come. The big news tonight, Sarah Boone convicted of second-degree murder. We'll be right back.
You know what? Oops, sorry. What's interesting is that Mr. Owens, though, is just kind of a talker. And I don't mean that negatively. I know I was very irritated, but it's like, the lawyers have to do their job, and I get that. And my gosh, to step in and for what he had. But the two prosecutors were just more close-lipped. I kind of respect that. I'm not criticizing Mr. Owens, but they were just more. Also, can you imagine how exhausted they must be? And this probably feels very surreal for them after all these years, and the Torres family. But I know I was talking about the victims, and I think anyone who associated with Sarah was probably a victim. I'm thinking of her ex-husband, Brian, and their 14-year-old son who now reside in Gainesville, Florida. And, that poor young man, 14 years old, hopefully he's not where, everyone's on the internet. So, and Brian, I just thought he seemed like a stand-up guy and very tolerant. I hope they'll have closure, and I don't think Sarah's going to be getting any more alimony from Brian. But, I think, Sarah probably is in shock, and I still think she believes that somehow, some way, she's going to get out. And I just wonder what happens when reality hits her, and if it ever does. Maybe it never will. There's one thing, and I can't remember if I said it in the first half of her testimony that I posted, and I will post the other one later. I was in the process of doing it. I'm just going to get this one posted tonight, and then I'll work out everything else, because I really want to go back over the trial, because there was just so much, and oh my gosh, the things that she did. But one of the things, when she was up there doing her fake story in her little voice, she said that George and I were two bodies with one soul. Well, to that I say, Sarah Boone, no. There was only one soul, and that was George's, because you have no soul. No soul. So cold. The berating that she did of him, and just anybody. I mean, anybody who's in contact with her, how horrible. She's got some bad juju. And I get the fact that she lost her family, like her grandparents and her mother and father, very young in life and all close together, and that's horrific. But like I said, I don't know if I said it on here. I'm so sorry, guys. I say it on so many things, but I feel like she was very jealous of George's family. That was probably a family she wished she had, and I get that, and I can empathize with her, but that doesn't mean she has to act like that towards him. Horrible. Just horrible. I mean, I know I can't say enough how, I tell you, and like I said, seeing those videos, which I'll share, y'all, I'm sure you've watched them already, but I need you all with me, if you're going to be with me, to go with it, because I'm just like, it's this case has really haunted me, and she is She's one of the coldest, vile individuals I think I've ever seen.